What do you want now, Joker? Why did you bring me here?
Oh, nothing, Madman. I just wanted to show you a new Pokemon I got.
No, Joker, not again!
Welcome back, dear viewers, to Is It Worth It? The show where I take a look at action figures to see if they are worth the price they are given. And today we're going to be taking a special look at the REVOLTECH Amazing Yamaguchi Joker, the 1.5 version to be exact. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get him out of that box. But before we do that, let's get past the boring stuff first. Here's the instructions, just in case you want to pause the video and take a look at any side you want, including the bonus accessories instructions. Next up, here's the little QR codes in case you want to scan those. Now with that boring stuff out of the way, let's go ahead and get to the meatier stuff, like accessories. Starting right off, we actually get quite the variety of accessories with the knives. You actually get some single ones, along with some groups of threes. And of course, Robin's favorite crowbar. We also get some playing cards that have Batman and Joker on them with some nice detail, along with having the bang gun with the little flag sticking out, and some additional effects to plug onto any of the weapons, along with having these two extra revolvers that don't have the bang sticking out. And last but certainly not least for the weapons are these two Tommy guns. For other accessories, we do get a cool little gesture staff, along with having these small little chattering teeth, which make sure you don't lose them because they are pretty small. It even has good detail on it with the teeth and the little wind-up part. The set also does include an extra swappable head for the Joker, which is his more maniacal laugh-looking side, which it definitely does capture the character of the Joker very well. Something that would have been nice for this set is to have some extra expressions, because only having the two does suck. But there is another one being this bonus accessory, which was exclusive to Japan, so if you wanted to get it, you had to get it from some type of website which is based in Japan. And it does suck because it gives so much more character to the figures you're already buying, but they do cost around usually $20 more on top of the base price of the figures. And sometimes some figures have some pretty good bonuses, so it makes them all the more harder to get. Luckily, the base set still comes with quite a few accessories, having a bunch of assortments of different hands, including all these ones you see right here in this little grid tree, but let's take a closer look at individual ones. Starting off with the hands, we do get some open reaching out ones, along with some little hands to hold the weapons like his knives, along with some pointing fingers that could be used as finger guns, a pair of open hands that are more crunched like they're grabbing something, trigger hands that are actually meant to hold the guns he comes with, and lastly just some plain fisted ones he comes in the box. Something that's actually really nice about these hands accessories is because they're the same size with most REVOLTECHs, they actually fit on the Moon Knight pretty well. And for the last accessories, we can find them in the back of the tray in this little bag. And not only in those bags do we get the REVOLTECH stand, but we also get these two air bubbles of ha 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 for the Joker. And lastly, this tiny little extra REVOLTECH joint piece, which to be honest, I actually had no idea what it went to at first. I ended up watching a bunch of reviews of this figure and no one said anything about it. Like, this joint didn't even fit any of the other sockets on the figure, so I really couldn't figure it out until I got the bright idea to actually look at the instruction manual, which if you do, you would actually find out that this piece is for the laughing effect to be able to plug into his back. That way you don't need the assistance of the stand and it can be all by itself, which is actually very useful to know because he has a second peg hole so you can still use the stand and have the laughing effect on his back. When it comes to the protection of this figure, they do make sure to put a lot of the plastic in between every single nook and cranny of all the joints, just to make sure nothing gets scraped while it's being delivered. They even have this little thicker one that protects his coattails. But now let's go ahead and take a better look at the detail and sculpt. Starting off with the sculpt, this one is slightly different than the original 1.0 version because this one actually has a more shinier, glossier look, almost more metallic looking, which I could see that being a turnoff for some people, considering that you might just want it to be matte like the original, but to be honest, I do like this look. It makes it stand out more in your collection, and I've always been a sucker for metallic colors, especially the deep blue ones. And since it's only the purple, it doesn't really affect anything else. The hair I could see is probably a little bit more shinier as well, but it makes it feel almost more oily, which just gives it more detail, and I think everything else with all the other colors that's going on, with the green vest underneath, to the orange button-up shirt, and also having the purple just jumpsuit itself, I think it all works out very well. Sculpting wise, he's also very detailed. While you go to the face and all the wrinkles you can see with the detail in the hair, along with the lines going through the entire suit, down to the shoes and the little cuffs around the wrists. But with the sculpt, let's see if it hinders the articulation at all by putting it into practice. Starting off around the leg, it's very similar to most of the other REVOLTECHs, but it's a little more unique. Because it's based off of a tuxedo suit, it's going to be a little more hindered, but it's funny that the leg ends up bending more outwards than it does inwards. He also doesn't have that like calf ball joint that lets it bend in more, but then again, He's not a character like Spider-Man that needs to do that. When it comes to the lower part by the feet, they actually don't get hindered by the pants being in the way. He still gets a really good side pivot, and the toe joint's very movable going up and down. Something to remember with REVOLTECH figures is when it comes to their thigh cuts and their legs just in general, they can go straight out, but you have to kind of like swing them because of the way that their joints are, which does allow them to get a perfect split, even sometimes going past that. Again, because of this very unique sculpt, it also has different types of these shoulder blade butterfly joints where it's the entire suit that's moving forward, along with having the shoulder pads, which technically aren't a joint but are just a clip that goes onto the joint itself of the shoulders, which does give him some crazy range. The tailcoat itself is also removable and has a joint by itself, which you can just have it be off sometimes, but to be honest, it will look a little weird in the back, so it's best to just keep it on. You might also think with a character like him, his ab crunch isn't going to be that great, but no, he actually gets quite the amount of range, even going forward and back. When doing this and moving it around with all the posing I have done, I was worried it might be scratching the paint or just getting any types of scuffs, but nope, everything seemed to be pretty in order. The only small annoyance that I had was with the little green shirt underneath. Sometimes you have to pull it down when you do the ab crunch because it will pull it up. Now let's get to probably the most interesting articulation part, being the head and the neck. Let's be honest, it's a giraffe neck. It's very tall and can look really weird from some angles. It can just look fine if you know how to properly pose it, but still, it does seem a little bit overkill. Would have been nice to be just slightly a little bit shorter. I understand it does give it a lot of freedom to move around more and be more posable, but with a character like this, when not really having anything to really hide the joints of the way the neck looks, it's just not a good mix. They could have cut back a little bit on the articulation just to make it not look as weird in normal vanilla poses or just any poses in general. Not to mention, as you can see here, I'm struggling to get it back in from just popping it off on accident by making him look forward. Another part that you can also notice is that he does have this little green hair piece that's separate from the head itself. Now, something that's also different about this REVOLTECH than most is that he has movable eyes instead of swappable ones, which makes it somewhat easier, makes it so you don't lose them, but then it also can be annoying because they actually are very stiff, and it can be very hard to move them even with the tool you are given to do so. And having to rely on this piece is just kind of annoying because I've actually had them break on me. You're better off just using something like a toothpick, to be honest. With the arms, you do get a lot of range with the elbows, just like most REVOLTECHs, where he does actually have the one joint and then having the ball joint further so you can have it go in and out. Personally, I would always recommend trying to have it be in as most as possible because that way the suit won't have a weird cutoff like most REVOLTECHs do. The collar around his sleeve is also a separate piece, so it can be moved around so you can make the hand have more freedom. And with the hands being selected to be removable, I'm surprised how easily they stay together and not fall apart like most REVOLTECHs. So yeah, articulation wise, you're probably not going to find any other Joker that's going to be this flexible and movable as him. And to be honest, I actually ended up enjoying this figure a lot more than I was planning to. I actually wasn't even going to do a review on him. He was just going to be a normal, short-term little TikTok review. But the more and more I posed him, the more and more I fell in love with the figure. But it still is a very specific type of figure for a specific type of individual. It's very dynamic, it's very anime-ish style with all of the pieces it comes with and just the articulation of how dynamic he can be. But to be honest, there's really not that many other Joker options out there. There is the Mafex Hush Joker, but his face and style is also very specific and he's not nearly as posable. So there are different Jokers for different types of people. But that isn't to say that this figure doesn't have any problems. Some of the issues I did run into was with the tailcoat. It's probably one of the most annoying that just trying to pose it around, you will have it fall off quite a bit. Not that it's that hard to get back on, but still, it's just annoying when you're trying to play with a figure or pose it, and you constantly have a piece that will continue to fall on it. Another annoying part of the figure was the eyes. It's just very hard to even get into them, so let alone are they already hard to turn, but it's even harder when you can't even reach them, even with the tool. Another big problem that this one is kind of really irreversible is getting paint scuffs on the items he comes with because of his hands scraping onto them for the grip being too tight on the items, which I do want him to be able to hold them, but I also don't want him scratching paint. And my last gripe is the little collar piece on the wrist, because every time you swap hands, that part is probably going to go flying. But still, being someone who really likes to pose his figures around, especially in dynamic ways, I can still recommend this figure for a lot of Joker fans. And in case you were wondering, here's some size comparisons like with the DC Mafex figures, along with having him side by side with the REVOLTECH Flash and Reverse Flash figures. And lastly, a size with the Mafex Nightfall Batman and Bane. Here's also how he stands next to the Arkham Knight REVOLTECH figure, which they are the same license, but that Joker is just way too tall with this Batman. Although when you do have them in actual dynamic poses, you really won't be able to tell and they look just fine. And with this guy retailing for around $80, with the amount of accessories you're getting and just overall offerings, I would say it is worth it. But as always, let me know what you guys think.